I went to Clear Lake and I decided to get some aerial footage of the lava flows and some ground footage as well, and take some photographs of the lava flows that created this wonderful place. I ended up discovering several other things while I was here, which I found rather fascinating. We'll get to here in a minute. This reveal shot right here is what they call when you lift up with your multi-rotor, and kind of a dramatic look. But it does give you the time to take in everything you're seeing. And I'd like to draw your attention to that tree on the right. You'll see that more, but that particular tree on the right turned out to be very interesting. And then as it lifts up, you'll see a few others that are similar. The one almost dead center in the screen is in one of those stages of decomposition. Now, that sounds kind of weird to be interested in all that. I mean, so what? A tree dies, it falls over and whatnot. But what I discovered on this particular lava flow is something I had not seen before, and maybe it's common to people who are volcanologists and that kind of stuff, but, you know, I learned something today, and that was entertaining to me. On the left side, about a quarter of the way in maybe, and there it's starting to pivot, you'll see another tree that's similar to what I call the skeleton tree that was earlier shown. And what I really find interesting is how things decompose on the lava fields. It was not what I anticipated, and actually it was only honestly, it was after a review of the video that I took here with the multi-rotor that I really understood what was going on, at least to the best of my ability. I noticed it when I was walking around up on the flows, but two and two didn't really come together until I was reviewing the footage in full screen. I was like, oh, light bulb moment. And it was just really cool. And this beautiful scene, you can see the lodge and the waters over there on the far right, you know, where it's real shallow, and well, it appears to be shallow. Actually, some of the parts of that are actually pretty darn deep, 40, 50 feet, but it doesn't look that way. But it's the white sands that really kind of give it that jade color. And this is just a pan of the size of the lake. It is a good-sized lake at the same time for a moderate paddler, you know, intermediate, moderate paddle. You can easily make your way around this. During the latter parts of the day, if the wind picks up, you know, a rudder is sure handy. But, you know, you can make it. Stick close to the shore, you're fine. Do be advised when you're out hugging the shorelines of the ancient forest and the trees that are down at that end and around the cove back behind the lodge. Never lose focus as to what's in front of you. It's easy to look around and go, oh, look at that, because there's so many things to look at. But go slow, because a lot of these trees are coming up from the depths, and some of them are just below the surface. Many of them look like they are, but they're not, and you kind of let your guard down, and next thing you know it, whomp, and it can really scare you. Ask me how I know. Okay, here on the left side of the screen, you'll notice some skeletal remains of some of the branches, and there's a little bit of the trunk left on that. This is one of the interesting clips that, you know, of some that I got, that at the time I didn't really catch on to what I was really looking at, but this is when you are able to determine the actual radius of the tree that used to be there. In this case, the trunk is there, so you can get a pretty good idea of everything, where the base is and everything like that. But in some cases, it's not so obvious. Basically, in some cases, all you're left with is just the skeletal remains of some of the branches. You would think that the trunk would be there the longest, but in many cases, that's not the case. It's a little backwards in what you kind of get used to. But if you tromp around up there, you're able to locate the actual trunk of the tree and find out what its overall radius was. It's kind of interesting. Okay, coming into the top right side of your screen, you'll notice that rust line right there, and there's a couple of them that are coming into view. What those are, as it turned out, those are actually trunks of trees in a later developmental stage of decomposition. And what it is there's layers of algae and stuff like that, or moss or something that grows there and helps break down the larger pieces of wood. But the colors that they provide when they start to decompose like that are rather staggering, and they kind of take you aback for just a moment, because we're so used to seeing, you know, wood that, you know, has fallen on the forest floor and it decomposes. Oh, look, it's kind of just, you know, brown and falling apart. You know, wood rot, we've all seen that, hopefully not the house. Or at the bottom of the screen you see some more skeletonized tree branches and things like that. And we'll get back to that in just a second. You'll see some really good shots that came into view of that. Okay, here the camera's panning to the right during the footage that I took for the video, and you'll notice lots of skeleton branches from a tree that isn't even there anymore. Now, in this video, I fly over this broken off tree, and then the camera starts to point down. And this is probably, this clip right here is where I really noticed, wow, that's kind of pretty, you know, all the different colors and stuff. But then it kind of hit me like, what exactly is going on? You'll notice on the right all the branches for a tree that's long since gone. I don't even know where it is. There's another one very close by, but so there's the whole area, as you can see, is just scattered with branches like that, and it just kind of turns white. And the colors here are pretty stark. You know, the greens and the reds and the browns, and see that all that brown down there? That is a type, or kind of a rust color, that is a type of moss or something that is growing at the base of this tree, as this tree is starting to degrade at the bottom, which will eventually cause it to fall over. And all the skeleton branches on your left, it's just really interesting to look at what happens. Here's a bunch. I mean, look at these streaks that look like rust streaks. Those are turning to dust and literally blowing away. And I wish I'd paused right there, but at the time I didn't know what I was looking at. I just thought it was cool looking. But those are some of the things that you can see that are just a little bit foreign to, I think, what most people are used to seeing, unless they spend a lot of time on a lava field. It's probably normal to them and they understand it. But, you know the old saying, today I learned. Well, there it is. I thought that was pretty fascinating. Again, these flows came from Sand Mountain 3,000 years ago. There's actually 3 separate flows in the area. And they've all been dated accordingly. And if you go over by the lodge, there's a sign or a post that tells you about the 3 different flows if you're interested in more information. But the gist of this area is 3,000 years ago, Sand Mountain erupted, and lava came across the valley towards this river. And when it got to one edge of the river, obviously it must have been pretty cold water. But it blocked off the river and created Clear Lake. Pinched it off pretty darn good. It is now fed through an ancient spring, which is in one of my aerial videos. I can actually include it here. It is fed by an ancient spring and a small spillway of what remains, I believe, of the original river. There is still some water coming in there now. What did it do 3,000 years ago? Who knows? But the main flow of the river comes from main flow of the lake comes from the ancient spring, and it's quite a wonderful thing. The water is extremely cold there, though. The water here can take anywhere from 2 to 10 years from Sand Mountain to filter all the way through the lava rock and stuff to finally reach the ancient spring, which I'll show here in just a moment. Okay, so here is the entrance to the ancient spring that I was referring to. A little tricky to get to fly into, a little sketchy, but, you know, take your time, go slow. And a lot of water pumps out of here. it's very deceptive as to how much water is actually coming out of there. It's filtering through the lava rock from Sand Mountain, comes up at this location. There is a trail that leads you to this point. If you follow that trail all the way around, there's a lookout right there about in the center of the screen, and you can get a really good view, some nice pictures. Be careful though, there's not like this nice smooth even landing in that area for you to get pictures. You know, you can, if you did fall in there, you could get back out, but I suggest you do it quickly. I also would ask that, not that I have anything to say about it, but don't go swimming there. Not just because of the water temperature, but because this is such a pristine spot. You know, we don't need tennis shoes and sunglasses and junk down into this spring. It's a gorgeous thing to see, and it's maintained solely by nature. So let's keep the garbage out of there. So the camera will rotate, and it will take you a good view to be able to see how it flows out and back onto the lake. And as it exits out onto the lake, the current hugs the bank on the right. Pretty strong current. And because it's elevated at this point and then goes and drops down into the lake, that's why you can't kayak up in here. But when it goes down into the lake, it hugs the right bank. So as you come in from the left, down on the lake, as you come in from the left, the current will push you pretty strongly out and around to the right. It's pretty neat. A lot of fun. This picture is a good example taken with the Telson dome that shows you above and below the surface at the same time. That's not an illusion. At the end of that kayak right there, the tan one, it literally drops off like a cliff. So in some of these cases, you know, getting back out of the water can be a serious challenge in some of these areas where the lava flow has come right up to the water and just dropped right off like a cliff. It can be fairly intimidating looking at it, but at the same time, it's really cool. Now this view is of a lava flow. As you can see, this must have been the height of it because the trees are on left and right of it. This is one of the lava flows that went directly at Clear Lake. It is very rough terrain. It looks fairly docile from the UAV that you're seeing the video coming from, but it's not easy to traverse around. It's pretty treacherous, actually. It can be done. I strongly recommend knee pads, good hiking boots, elbow pads, definitely gloves, because this stuff will cut you to ribbons. You think you're just going to run out there and dance over the lava fields. You're sorely mistaken, because some of these embankments of this stuff are quite large. But this flow right here goes directly to Clear Lake, which would be behind you in this view. And the Sand Mountain and stuff would be where all this came from. You'll see the mountains off in the back. Well, thanks for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. And I really enjoy Clear Lake, and it's one of my favorite spots. So if you do decide to come to Clear Lake, take the time to go slow and enjoy. There's plenty of things to see above the water and below. Again, the water is very clear. It's very cold. But it's one of the most beautiful spots that I've ever seen in my life. So be sure to check out some of my other videos that have plenty more footage of this particular place.